Hello everybody, my name is Tree Company and I am sitting at the bunja restaurant in Old Quarter, Hanoi. There is amazing bunja in front of me, but it is only $3, less than $3. It seems super cheap, isn't it? Actually, this is expensive than the other real local places because this is Old Quarter, the touristic place, and this restaurant is super famous. So it's a bit expensive than other bunja restaurants, but still cheap. Cheap price is not the only good point in Hanoi, and also there are lots of bad points. In this video, I will tell you the pros and cons of Hanoi travel. Yes, it's time to discover Hanoi. No matter how fast Vietnamese economy is growing, the cost of traveling is still basically low. I warn you in advance, even in a developing country, international luxury 5-star hotel for $100, it will not happen. You cannot go to a fancy restaurant for $10. Expensive things are expensive in here too. But if you look at the average level of hotels and restaurants, if you compare in other countries, you will find that Hanoi is definitely cheaper. First of all, in terms of accommodation, even 2 to 3-star private room hotels can be found for around $30 a night. Hostels can cost as little as $5 a night. If you go to a local food, you can feel it more. Even in the Haute Quarter, where there are many travelers and food prices are high, you can usually eat local food for $3. Even expensive restaurants, which famous for tourists, are around $5. In Hanoi, you can spend $10 a day on food. Even if you are drinking coffee, it's still around $1 or $2 in local cafe. For travelers who enjoy local scene, Hanoi is a great value for money. The alpha and omega of traveling in Hanoi is the Haute Quarter. Since Hanoi became the capital of Vietnam over 1,000 years ago, here has been the best downtown of this city. This Haute Quarter is the one of my favorite places in all of Southeast Asia. The charm of the old buildings and streets is incredible. Where the paint is peeling, it's been painted over, rusted and broken, but also full of human energy. It's another small area, so there's lots of contents in there too. There are traditional Asian temples like this, and European Gothic cathedral like this. There are fancy restaurants, cheap local eateries, and the streets, which are full of motorcycles and cars on weekdays, becomes a pedestrianist playground on the weekends. Not to mention all the events that take this place here. I think the very existence of the Haute Quarter is one of the best things about Hanoi, and the best reason to travel to this city. Vietnamese food is one of the most popular cuisines in Southeast Asia. No matter where you live, you might have pho, the rice noodle, and spring roll before. So barrier to entry to local cuisine is a bit low. And some people has a stereotype that the real Vietnamese dishes are more difficult than each country's localized dish, with tons of coriander and weird ingredients, but that's not true. Especially in the north, in Hanoi, the flavor is simpler than in the south. Compared to Ho Chi Minh, aka Saigon's sour and spicy food, Hanoi flavor is simple, mainly soy sauce, so it's easy. In many ways, it is a very satisfying trip to Hanoi with food. In addition, even if you only travel to the city itself, you can spend about 3 or 4 days in Hanoi, but there are also good suburbs for traveling. Honestly, they are a little bit far from Hanoi, more than an hour, but these are usually the areas that you group together when traveling to Hanoi. The first tier that everyone wants to go to, Sapa in the northwestern mountains, Halong Bay in the eastern sea, and below that, Ninh Binh, the land version of Halong Bay, and there's a Hajang, which looks like a mix of Sapa and Ninh Binh. And with all these wonderful neighboring destinations, it's easy to get from the Hanoi downtown. Public transportation is difficult, but there are a number of inter-regional tours operated by independent travel companies. Hanoi trip is a great combination of city and nature, so I can add this to the list of the advantages. And Hanoi is the capital and second largest city of Vietnam. And Vietnam is a big country with a population of 100 million. Hanoi is a home to nearly 9 million people. And in a city of that size, there are a lot of luxury hotels for wealthy people. So Hanoi has a JW Marriott, two Intercontinentals, Four Seasons, World of Astoria, Capella, Sofitel Legend. So there's a lot of luxury hotels for hotel lovers. And when I was talking about the low cost of traveling, I told you even in Vietnam, international luxuries are not very cheap. Yes, that's right. Even in Hanoi, it's basically expensive. They start from $400 per night. But if you compare the same brand to a more expensive city, it makes efficient. Capella Hanoi as an example. If you look at the prices of Singapore, there is Capella too. Hanoi looks like a reasonable price. It's cheaper than the same brand in Bangkok too, the most famous vacation destination. Of course, compared to places with a long history of luxury hotels, the overall experience can be a little unsatisfying, but it's still a relatively affordable way to enjoy luxury. A big plus for hotel lovers, right? Hanoi is a favorite destination for Europeans and Asians. Therefore, there is a good travel infrastructure and a lot of English script. However, it is also an analog and wild place. Unlike developed countries that are well organized, the patterns what we think of cities don't apply here. It's not like Japan, which can be boring at times. Overall, Japan is so pretty, but it's too clean and scheduled. It's not so poor and bad that it's difficult to travel to, but it's not cliched, it's exotic enough. In many ways, Hanoi has just the right level of difficulty for beginner travelers. The feeling of being an active traveler, that weird sense of satisfaction is a plus for me. So there you have it, my overall favorite things about Hanoi. But honestly, this city includes not only happy things. Now for the really important part, disadvantages. What do you think of big cities in Vietnam? A bunch of motorcycles. And Hanoi is the capital city and the second largest city in Vietnam. There are enough motorcycles in Hanoi to fulfill your expectations or worries. Hanoi has plenty of them. No matter what you imagine, it will be more than enough. There are so many motorcycles in this city. There are nearly 8 million motorcycles registered in Hanoi and 2.3 million in Korea, 11 million in Japan. The city of Hanoi alone has more than 3 times the number of motorcycles as South Korea, and 70% of Japan, the motorcycle kingdom. Vietnam as a whole has 65 million. That's more than the entire continent of Europe, 39 million. That's an unimaginable number. And there are more motorcycles than cars. It is more stressful for travelers. Cars have to follow their lane, but motorcycles don't follow anything. They drive on the pedestrian walkway, they go everywhere, and then you will see these motorcycles parked on the walkway, blocking everything. And pedestrians ends up being pushed out into traffic. You will be so annoyed at the first day in Hanoi. I guarantee. Number one downside motorcycles, and the exhaust from old motorcycles is huge. And there are lots of factories around Hanoi too. I'm talking about Bac Ninh, 30 kilometers from the city. It's one of the largest industrial areas in Vietnam. So the air quality is very bad. There's a lot of dust. If you ask people what color they think of when they imagine Hanoi, they will answer it is gray. It's not even like there are no trees. And in Hanoi, you get to go up high a couple of times. You can go to a rooftop bar in the old quarter, or to go high-rise observatory like Lotte Center or Landmark 72. But what you're greeted with when you go up there is a gray, smoky city full of gray light. In many ways, it's hard to find comfort in Hanoi. If you go to a big city in Japan and come to Hanoi, you will realize it. In some ways, the summer rainy season is a good thing because of this air pollution. Dust is washed away by the pouring rain. But in winter, in the dry season, there's really no answer. The old quarter, where most travelers stay, is good. It's a good travel content because it highlights the advantages of the city as a travel destination. And the French quarter, which next to the old quarter, doesn't have much to offer, but the atmosphere is very quiet. Also, Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum, Thang Long Castle, and Literature Temple are quite interesting to see. But if you go from there to the general city part, it's honestly not good. Lotte Center and Landmark 72 are also skyscrapers for Hanoi, but compared to other cities, it's just so-so. Yes, compared to other developed countries, it's too unfair to Hanoi. So our competitor is Bangkok, another Southeast Asian city. Bangkok has more to offer than just Khao San and the Grand Palace on Rattanakosin Island, Asok, Thonglo in Sukhumvit, Silom in Sathon and Siam. There are many sub-districts with its own characters, but Hanoi, except Old Quarter, doesn't look interesting enough. The best option for first-time traveler is the city's metro system. Not only are the maps intuitive and easy to follow, it's not only physically accessible, but also psychologically accessible. Buses in strange country sometimes seems difficult to ride on. Hanoi does have an official metro system. It's called Cát Linh Line 2A, which opened in 2021, but it's useless. It doesn't go through the old quarter, it doesn't go through the Lotte Center, it doesn't go through the Miding. It means every important place in Hanoi. Even the locals don't ride it well either, so it's not even busy during the rush hour. This lack of public transportation combined with a large number of motorcycles, it creates a huge traffic jam. If you go to Landmark 72 from the old quarter in the evening, you are going to get a taste of hell. It's a spectacular sight from afar, motorcycles and traffic, but when you have to face them by your body, it's pain. The good news is that the third line, which is being tested now, is fully operational in 2027. You can go from Hanoi Station to Lotte Center, but I wonder when that will happen. This is a disadvantage similar to air pollution. It's true that the hygiene level in Hanoi, especially in the old quarter, has dropped a bit. It's a different issue from the crowds. Morning and afternoon are the cleanest time. But for first-timers, even you go around at this time, there's more trash on the streets than you'd imagine. And then in the evening and night, when the street food shops are open, it makes the morning feel better. The street food shop wash their dishes in the street, and the water goes straight down the drain, and what's left is a buffet for cockroaches and rats. Each people have different levels of acceptable hygiene, but if you care about that, so the sanitary conditions in Hanoi can be quite unsatisfactory. You don't realize it until it happens to you, but once you do, it's one of those things that outweighs all the other negatives. The good news is that it's not that bad in modern restaurants. It normally happens at seaside restaurants serving seafood. Inland, in Hanoi, there's no such thing. The tip is about massage. If you have visited Thailand or Bali before and enjoyed their massage, then a massage in Hanoi or Vietnam can be a little disappointing. It's a country that doesn't have a massage culture, but travelers want it, so there is a supply and demand. Thai massage is famous in the world, but there is no traditional Vietnamese massage, so it's more expensive than Thailand, but it is not organized. So lots of massages are not very satisfying, but anyway, they want a tip from you. The biggest rip-off is transportation, such as taxis and minivan. This is even more notorious than tipping for a massage. Thankfully, since the late 2010s, apps like Grab has become more popular, so it's not very stressful in present time. But if you still need to take a taxi in a situation where you cannot get a Grab, you have to look for brands like Vinasun or Mylin and skip everything else. And that situation is quite annoying. Just expensiveness is way better than scam. It's a minor disadvantage compared to other things. It's hard to tell which season is Hanoi's good season. Hanoi is the most northerly city in Southeast Asia. It's not much different from the southern part of East Asia. So unlike Bangkok, which is always hot season, Hanoi is cold in winter. You have to bring a jacket, and locals wear light wear of puffers. Unusually, when you go to Southeast Asia, you want to be warm. When it's cold in Europe or Korea, you can go to an outdoor pool, play in the ocean. Just lying on the sunbed and relaxing. You cannot do that in Hanoi. But the summer is also very humid and hot and steamy and hot. It's also a rainy season in here. Even the some luxury hotel doesn't have an outdoor swimming pool, so they just use an indoor pool, which is nonsense in Bangkok. Hanoi has all the downsides of Southeast Asia, but without the upside of warm winters, the lack of specialized season is also a disadvantage. Yes, this is it. Now I told you every pros and cons in Hanoi. Let's summarize what you learned today. Now you learn about the pros and cons of Hanoi. I am standing at Hong Kong Lakeside, a background of pros and cons both. I hope you won't be disappointed when you arrive at Hanoi. Thank you for watching this video, and yeah, thank you again.